Welcome everybody to the Fall Line with Chaos and Company. We are doing a traveling show, which is pretty cool. I have a different co-host than our normal Angelo Ross. He decided to go out to Hawaii, but we have Kevin Jordan, national team member. Kevin, how's it going, buddy?
Pretty good. Thanks for having me. I'm gonna try to fill in for Angelo as best I can. You know, I'm just gonna look up, think about things, and then drop some knowledge and talk about how I used to be a biology teacher.
So you guys just got off the hill, and we'll see. Why don't you jump over here? Just out of camera for Charlie. We got to see Charlie. There we go. And you guys just came off the hill, so Kevin, you have to show them what you have on your feet still.
Oh yeah, I'm training for inner ski, and so I have ski boots on nonstop because that's what the Swiss and the Austrian do, and 3:00 in the morning, they're still wearing ski boots. So I'm just trying to get used to it right now.
That's cool. You got 3 more years to wait.
Yep. I'm working on it.
You had them on last night when you were in the bar.
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
So we are super excited. We have 2 of the gentlemen from Carv-Digital Ski Coach, and we've had the pleasure I have with my crew this week skiing it all week. But we have John Moore, and you're in charge of product with Carv, yes?
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Pleasure to be here.
Cool. And Charlie over here, Charlie Lindsay's here. And Charlie, you're more on the on-hill kind of guy.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so I look after a lot of our events and how we work with awesome instructors like Kevin and yourself.
Cool. Well, it's been pretty cool. I know you've launched Carv 2 this year, which is kind of goes away from Carv 1 that was the footbed and kind of looked at pressure, and it's all motion sensors. Where's that going, and what was that big change?
Yeah, I'm glad to feel that one. So we've always had motion and pressure sensors. And in fact, we had a few more motion sensors or motion metrics than we did pressure. And then 2 things happened. One is a lot of customers said, well, I wish I didn't have to put this in my boots. It's very thin, but for some people it's a little uncomfortable. And the boots were really, really fit to their foot. So that was one thing that happened. And we said, yeah, we should think about maybe other solutions, but didn't have a clear path. And then what happened was we had a big breakthrough. We have gyroscopes and accelerometers in the sensors. And we developed a new kind of what we call sensor fusion of how we take that and create a model of your boot. And it dramatically improved the quality of our motion metrics so that we can create these 3D models of your boot in space. And it made all of our motion metrics just a level of quality above the pressure one.
Yeah. And
it just made it so that going forward, to have the most reliability across all of the things we coach against, we really, really had to lean into the motion. And then you get this side benefit that you don't have cables, you don't have all this install, and you're ready to go.
And you guys have been pretty collaborative. As I've researched a little bit, really collaborative in terms of working with people out there using your product. Was that like a collaborative to move to the sensors, or was just the technology was there? Like, were they asking for some things of motion versus, because you said there was a couple motion things already in there?
Yeah, it was predominantly, we were about 60% motion and 40% pressure. And motion was always our strongest set of metrics. But then with this breakthrough, they became so much greater that we leaned into that even more, created even more metrics, new balance metrics based on motion, and that's what drove it.
And the algorithm amazes me. Like what you built, you went out and videoed a bunch of skiers wearing Carv, and Carv 2 with the motion sensors, and then had a ton of people, I don't know how many, 100,000s, look at those videos to then look at what is the best skiing and rate it that way, and built in, and the way that thing's learning, I mean, that's pretty amazing of what it's looking at, just looking at skiers out there skiing and how they're moving. How did you get all that data done?
Well, I suppose it's been an ongoing project since we launched Carv 1. And we've been collecting, and we reached a point last year where we realised we collected 500 million ski turns, which is wild. It's an unbelievable statistic. Each turn you make with Carv, you've got data being sent 20 times a second. Yeah. So if you just try and visualise that, it's crazy. It's huge. And really, the improvement in the algorithms was built on 2 things. It was firstly built on a team of fantastic instructors, people like Kevin, Kevin was hard at work for us over the summer. He said he didn't have much on. He was a little bit bored, looking out the window, hopefully for a little bit of snow. But yeah, we have a team of instructors from the US and Europe and beyond watching these videos and essentially recording what type of snow the skier is on, what type of turn they're doing, and what level they're at. And having that input, that sort of source of truth, allows us to teach the model to recognize the patterns and look for different things. We also have a lot of user-provided data as well. So over the last year, we were asking our users after they finished a run to record the type of snow that they were skiing. So that really allowed us to scale it, because we've got lots of videos, but lots more sessions where people aren't videoing because they're in the moment and they're skiing around and they haven't stopped to video. So if you've recorded that, okay, that run was in powder, or I was in moguls, or I was on a groomer, that basically allows us to continue to make Carv better. And that's really what got us to what we're doing today.
Yeah, and it's interesting to me that you had great teachers, the coaches, the different people. I'm interested in some of the folks that you used for that to look at the videos, because how did they rate them? Was it like they looked at 10 videos and the best skiing to 10, or was it a comparison of 2?
It was a comparison of 2. So it's really interesting. It was actually based off how chess is ranked. So essentially, if you have enough individual matches where you have one person sort of against another person, if you do that enough times, you're able to build a very, very accurate list in order of ability. Right. And we, our very clever data scientists looked at this and they thought, I think we can apply this to skiing. Yeah. So we asked our ambassadors and our team of video labelers basically to compare skiers and select which one was better. And it's a numbers game. As we did more and more, the ranks began to stabilize, and we were able to build a very accurate list.
Yeah, and for me, I didn't want to do like what you had to do to your boot for the footbed. I was like, I don't think I can do that. But the sensors really intrigued me. And then the motion was the other thing, like going from pressure to motion of everything we're doing is thinking about where we're moving. But then the thing that totally sold me, which I haven't played with enough yet, is the off-piste, like going into the bumps. We had a few bumps over on Mousetrap and a few spots, and then to go into powder. But that's got to be immense to be able to go in, not just be on the groom, perfect snow, but when you're going into that uneven. Has that been seen a jump? Like people are like, you think that's where they're going to go with it also? Like that's going to push it big?
Yeah, I mean, it's a huge part of skiing.
Yeah.
We were always pretty aware of that. But, in the early days, the technical challenge, as I'm sure you guys can imagine, of measuring bumps as opposed to a sort of more flat, groomed run, it's very, very difficult. Yeah. Very difficult. And it's really with the power of the data and the more data we collected that we began to do these things. But I suppose the way that it really works is, Kevin's labeling our videos, and he spots an excellent skier. He says, this guy's great, and they're in powder. We can then take that data, and we sort of bucket it up. We get all the amazing powder skiers, and we take all that data, we give it to the model, and the model begins to identify the metrics that make a real difference in that area. Yeah. And from then it learns what to look for, and it learns to differentiate between what makes a very skillful powder skier, very skillful mogul skier, and someone who just rips down groomers.
And Dave, I don't know if we've actually said to the listener yet. Like I get asked the question all the time, like what is Carv, right? And so it's an app, but it's also labeled as like a digital ski coach, right? So it's one of those things where like before Carv-1, you used to have there was inserts and there was hardware and there was wires and stuff like that. Now Carv-2 is just a little Bluetooth device, so it's so much easier. But I just think it's like, what is it? Like, well, today we were out skiing around with a bunch of people and they're trying it and then they're getting feedback and we're doing a whole bunch of different things. And it's like, what we did do is we tried to do the same run over and over again. So we wanted to keep the variable of the run the same, but then try different things on the same run over and over again. But I think it's just something that it's like, well, what is it? It's like, it's an app. And it's like the future, it's something that's like, it's super cool and, playing around with that stuff. I just want to make sure that we got that in there.
Yeah, it's awesome. I mean, it was easy. After talking with you, Charlie, and getting the sensors, I mean, I put it on 9 people this week plus mine, and it was super easy. Other than your advice to not be all in the same place when we try to do 9 people Bluetooth, we did have to separate a little bit for that. But it was amazingly easy. And so looking at the data, like how does it change when we're on groom to say powder? Like, what are the metrics? Will it change automatic? Will we need to look at them differently?
Yeah, so it's automatic essentially. What Carv will do is it will look at your segment. So basically you start skiing and Carv realizes you're skiing and it will start a segment. When you stop, it will close that off and it will sort of treat that as one bundle of data. What it will do is it will try and work out the terrain that you were on, and touching back on the on the project that Kevin was involved with earlier, it will begin to identify which metrics are more important than others in different terrains. Yeah. So as you head into the bumps, for example, Carv will begin to look at like how parallel your skis are in a more focused way than it might do when you were just on groomed terrain. Yeah. And as you head into powder, begins to think a little bit more about your balance and the shape of your turn. So it's a dynamic process that you don't need to get your phone out. You don't need to say, okay, I'm going into powder, let's make a note of this. Yeah. It's all automatic. It's super smart. It's happening in the background. You just need to ski and have a good time.
Yeah. And as it learns with the AI, like, has there been some things that come up that you're like, we didn't think it would figure that out? Or it gave you an idea to go another avenue for another way of looking at the metrics?
I mean, I suppose with the AI, I've kind of touched on it already, but it spots things that the human eye just couldn't spot.
Right.
Like we could have spent hours and hours and hours, almost years, like trying to identify these little trends and these patterns and these things, and it can do it very, very quickly. Yeah. And I guess in terms of surprises, nothing jumps out at me yet, but it's one of those things that it just becomes better and better and better. You ski on it more, you give it more data, you get more videos, and it just becomes more and more accurate.
Yeah. And you're here this week at our Summit Academy. Almost said the whatever, but Summit Academy and Eastern Academy. We changed the names this year to kind of liven it up. And we have close to 700 ski pros here and ride pros, but this is more a product for the ski pros. What do you see ski teachers, how do you see them using it? I know Kevin's been using it, he got some ideas, but I'm thinking from Carv, like what are some of the ways? Obviously you have some thoughts being here with this big event, probably the biggest in the entire country, to go out and ski. You went out this afternoon and ski with a bunch of folks on it. What are your thoughts how we can use it as ski teachers?
I mean, one of the things that I spotted today with you, Kevin, was that it was really helpful for the group in identifying what they needed to work on.
Yeah.
So they could dial in and they could say, okay, my early edging, for example, it's not so good as the other metrics. I'm not quite hitting that target zone, and it gives them a real indication. I mean, we were in quite a big group, and even the best instructor, you can't have eyes on 30 people at the same time. Right. But if they can come to you and they can say, look, I know I need to work on this. Yeah. You've saved a huge amount of time, and you can make the most of the limited time you've got and really maximize that human interaction with the context that Carv has provided.
Yeah. I think having something to work on and follow up, right? So that way you can go off, drill that area that your instructor has taught you about, come back and really bring to bear their expertise again at a point where, sometimes it takes some time to let things sink in, to try it out, and then you get this new cadence that allows them to really work together in parallel.
Yeah, and John, you came to the company after being a user first.
Yeah.
So these changes must be immense in terms of where it's gone, how it's getting more accurate, because that's what I've heard you guys talk about, that it's getting more accurate every day. And how does that work into the feedback as a user? Yeah,
more and more accurate, but also more and more actionable. The key thing for me, I was a super fan, right? I was such a super fan, and I wanted to join the company. But the one thing that I really want to continue to make more and more is actionable, and by that I mean more and more specific about, is it your right turn or is it your left turn that's problematic? Is it the beginning? Is it the middle? At the end? What aspect of it? Before, our tips were good, but they were more general. Well, keep your skis more together, ways of framing it, about thinking about your knees like headlights. But now we can get to the point where we can say, at the end of your right turns, your tips are diverging. Try to focus on that. Yeah. That's the next frontier of what we're able to do now. We visualize all of that now, and we can make it much more specific and much more actionable.
Yeah, because I had thought this week when I was planning on how to use it, and I talked to Kevin a little bit, and then talked to Charlie also, and it's like I had kind of had a plan, and it was really neat. You were like, well, don't get too much into what you want to do. See what the data is, and then go with that. Yeah. Like, what is Carv telling me my group's doing, and then go with that. Because I was like, I'm just going to go parallel skis. I'm going to go with the turn shape. But then you were like, well,
Well,
they might
I
not
mean,
want to go there.
That's what we did today. So we had 30 people, and it was one part demo, one part kind of clinic. And it's like it's only me for 30 people, so that's a little trickier. So what I was trying to do, and kudos to Charlie and John, who just kind of stood on the run, and they stationed themselves, and Ben, who's also here. But it enabled myself and Mike Hafer and Troy to kind of like get on chairlifts with people and look at what their metrics were doing. And one woman, her Pinky, she was so great. She's like, "Well, aren't you going to give me any feedback?" And I'm like, "I am, but let me see what the data says first, and let's look at it together, and let's interpret the data first, so that we can then make a decision together." And she needed some more like early forward movement, which a lot of people, including myself, like my scores aren't that high either. So it's like, well, great, like join the club, like let's work on this together. But I think it's like that's really the best of both worlds, and I think it's a cool experience. In some ways, like I kind of want to hear your take, because you like this was your first experience coaching with Carv, and for people who haven't been to now the Summit Academy and also Eastern Academy, and it used to be called Pro Jam and Masters Academy, there are groups who have literally skied together for 30 40 plus years. It's been such a long event. I don't know how long you've skied with your group, but I'm curious, like
Long time.
I'm curious.
Over 10 years.
Over 10 years.
Yeah.
So you use this as a tool, but you've never coached with it before. So I'm curious, like what your experience has been like being a coach, but with another tool in your toolbox.
It was fun because they were looking at different metrics based on where their percentages were. And then we were looking at some of the percentages, and they wanted them to jump like 20-30%. I'm like, it's only been 2 days, and that's kind of the question for you guys. It's like, I looked at it, and if they were jumping even 5% in a day or two, that's got to be a pretty big jump, because we're based on the best skiers are up there at that skier IQ of 170. You know, they're like, hey, how come I don't have a 160? It's like, well, and then they were like on the forward movement had like 28-29%, but like yesterday from Monday, they went to like 34-35, and is that the changes they should expect as how that works?
Oh yeah, I think that's a really valid point. It's easy to think, okay, well, I've worked really hard on this thing. Why is my score not jump sort of 10, 15 points, whatever? And I think certainly when you instruct alongside Carv, it's almost about, you know, it's building the layers, right? You know, you might have to take a step backwards to take 2 steps forward. Yeah. And if you're really focusing on something, it probably feels a little bit weird at first, and you need to get used to it, and you need to nail that, and then you build that foundation, you add it back into your skiing, and over time you begin to see the results, and you get dividends, and the IQ starts to go up. But it's you know, you can't always expect instant results. You know, learning's a process.
We introduced these new target zones for all the metrics, so that now you can see what a lot of times you'll see a pattern that people are hitting a bunch of them, but then there's 1 or 2 that are low. And to Charlie's point, you might try to work on those and bring them up, but you might see other ones fall a little bit. And when we do that, what we're showing you is the average performance of a skier who's 1 ability level above you. So it's if you can hit all those target zones, then you can guess that your ski IQ will reach a new range. We have these different ranges in there, and we celebrate you on that, and then we take them 1 step higher. And you can see, well, what does it take to get 1 step higher? And then the nice thing, you had asked this prior question about different terrain. If you go and ski in different terrain, those target ranges change, right? Because throwing really high edge angles in powder is just not what you do, right? And so those target range will be adjusted accordingly. And then you know what to go after. And it's okay if you bring them up and something else drops. It's that journey to figure out how to put the whole picture together. And at each level. So it's not about shooting the moon. In the past, you had these bars, and it was always about getting them all the way to the other side. A little bit overwhelming. Now we made it a little more accessible. What's that next step that I can get to?
Because you had talked about that a little bit, the target zones, and we might not always reach it. They're set for 1 above, and everybody's like, how come I didn't hit it, but I did better? And that's a good one. That was what the group was really asking. Like, they'd hit 1, but then another one would drop. So it's pretty interesting how that stuff goes. So the Bluetooth. I mean, we were having fun with that. Some of us had Bluetooth on, and it was chatting with us. I think Michael did, who was in the group, actually was using it when he was coming down the hill. So Carv was talking to him each turn. And then also, I know you can set up. You had talked before. You can set up. You get on the lift, and it gives you some coaching tips on the lift. How does that part of the system work?
Yeah, that's really the centerpiece. The default mode that we have is called Ski IQ and Tips. And every time you stop coming down the trail, it will give you your Ski IQ. And then every time you hit the lift, it will look at your past several days of data, and particularly your past several runs, and it'll choose a focus metric for you. And what it's doing is looking at your distance to those target zones, and just basically saving you the work of grinding through your data to figure out which is the right one. It'll pick one, and then it'll give you a tip every lift. And that way you try to put it back together. You can see how you've moved on that metric, get another tip. If you close that gap, it'll switch on to something new.
Yeah, that's super cool. It was super fun looking at the data. It was fun. We tended to do it, and I'm not sure if this is how, like, in general, you think they can use it in the best way. We were really looking for those patterns you were talking about, John. So we skied the first morning, got some baselines, and then looked at what the pattern was versus each run. More of the patterns for it, but then we did have some fun. It is kind of cool to, like, we were having that. You and Michael were trying to. We weren't skiing together, but the two. He's looking at the phone, like who was on the leaderboard.
Yeah.
You know, so there's that community part of it that we can look at other if you join in and what's going on the leaderboard. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, and I think congratulations to Kevin for topping out Killington this week. I think he needs a shout out for that.
But that's only because Michael actually had Michael's in the room. He's off camera, but he had the higher score, and then I tied him, and I was like, oh, I could do better, and then I like beat him by a point, so it was only a point. And now I can tell you that I'm 5 points ahead of him. It's great. Until tomorrow.
Okay, Killington until
tomorrow. I know he's going to go out. We even had some of the crew at the end of the day. They're like, I'm going to go over to Snowshed and just see if I can pad my number like right there.
You know what? That's something that I've noticed. I noticed the first time I used Carv. First time I used Carv, I was inside. We call them like a fridge in the UK. Like it's a temperature controlled, like fake snow environment, and it's one run and it's very short.
Yeah.
And normally you go there to remind yourself how to ski before you head to the Alps or whatever. And I stayed there for like 6 hours, and like I just kept on doing it, and I was chasing it, and I was like, I gotta beat that score, I gotta beat it, and you know, it really like adds a new dimension to stuff that you might have done 100 times, and it's just fantastic.
And it's interesting. I just in using it this week, there has to be some things that are valued. Like this is it. Like the short turns, are they valued more than medium just because of the rate that things are edging and that kind of thing? That short turn carve.
Yeah, it's worth a little bit of history on there. So if you go back to last year and the prior years, we really focused on carving in groomed terrain with a moderate pitch.
Yeah.
And the whole algorithm then was relatively simplistic. It would just take each of the metrics and weight it. And if you wanted to get great scores, you did that. And if you went over to moguls or you went in steeper pitch, it was a little bit defeating because your scores would drop. This year, because now what we're doing is basically emulating the brain of great ski instructors by collecting all this data from them. So now it treats each of those on its own merits. So if you ski in short turns, it will look for a different combination of metrics, and you'll be able to score high on them. If you're in moguls, it'll look for the own merits of that.
Yeah.
Now, still, you can probably still get the best scores by carving and moderate pitch, but they're all starting to equilibrate, and they're all scored on their own merits.
Yeah.
And it allows you to then see, well, let me do short turns, and because we show you the turn type and the tempo, you can see, well, how do my scores compare short turn to short turn over time?
Yeah.
And it's not, your scores don't plummet like they did before. That's the big change. Now we see people just turning it on and leaving carve on all the time. Yeah. Well, in the past, they would usually just use it when they were carving on groomers, and then they would turn it off other times.
Yeah.
But now it's just all day long.
Yeah, because I saw, Kevin, some good numbers on runs where I wasn't going for super high edge, but I was definitely really focused on shaping, keeping parallel skis, really how I was going through middle of turn, that everything was continually turning. Right. And numbers were still high, but it wasn't like a super high edge angle.
Sure.
I mean, it was still showing, to me, it was showing this is still good skiing, and it isn't just that one carve. I mean, have you noticed that in some of your scores?
I mean, I think it's like, right now, like the only objective thing that was that we had in skiing was a race course.
Yep.
Right. So here's the trail, here's the course.
Oh,
and then,
wrong room.
oh yeah.
Little chaos
Little
for the
chaos,
podcast
yeah,
there. We have Tina Buckley
yeah.
coming in going, wrong room.
But yeah, it's like anything. You had a race course, and whoever got down on the course the fastest won.
Yep.
And now with like Carv, 500 million turns and counting, and probably close to more like 1 billion turns. It's like I have another objective tool where it's like, oh, can I? Like I was skiing past your group today, and I was like, I felt like a 146.
Yeah, I heard you.
Yeah, and I'm like, I don't know, and I don't know if I am, but like, how cool would that be if I was actually right? You know what I mean? But it's one of those things where it's like the ski IQ just accumulates all the different metrics and pumps out like kind of a score, and you can kind of get a sense of different things. So like I used it for testing skis like the other day, and I was like, I wonder what this, a new pair of skis, but what would it do? And I'm gonna do a couple runs on the same trail and that kind of stuff. So it's just like another objective metric or objective tool in the toolbox. So it's pretty cool because you can play with it different ways.
It is, and the sensors seem forever. I finished the day, and we were letting it run all day, and I literally it said 100% charge still
Yeah.
on them. I mean, how long will they last on one charge?
So at least 5 days.
Yeah.
I'd say. So they'll last a long time.
Yeah.
You can take a full trip and you don't need to worry about
It was, I was like, I had to go charge them. Then I'm looking at the phone and it's like 100%. I'm like, I guess I don't. I got to charge my phone, but I didn't have to charge that. It was like, oh my God. So, and I know you've used it for yourself, John, and, but like as a ski teacher, like we're always working on something.
Yeah.
Where have you seen for you?
Yeah, I think for me, like the biggest thing has been it's shown an asymmetry in like my turns, right? Like my right footers tend to be a little better than my left footers, and like why is that important? Well, okay, last year there was a national team selection, so every opportunity that I could to start the first turn on my right foot, I did.
Yeah.
Like there were people that like, I was like 5th to go or something, and everybody's starting here, and they're all making left turns, and I would just skate over to the other side and set myself up so that I could do a right footer because I'm not there yet with my left footer to even it out. So I think like that's been the biggest tool that I've used of like, well, my right turns are really my right footed turn, so left turn is really good, and then my left footed turns are right turn not as good. So what is it about there? And what's cool in like the metrics, you can look and see what the overall scores are, and you can look at the different ones, and it's like, okay, let me try this, let me try that. So you're trying these different things so you can really self-coach yourself.
Yep.
But to John's earlier point, it's kind of like Carv becomes like the accountability buddy, where it's like, I think like prior, there were a lot of times like I had an opportunity to train with Jerry Berg, who was in Vail, and Mike Porter. Sometimes I would go over with him, and I'd be working on stuff all the time, but it would be like these little checkpoints. But it was like, okay, well, I got to get with Mike Porter, and he's available in February. But I've been working on stuff all of January, so it would just be like that moment in time where he's like, yeah, you're headed in the right direction. So like with Carv, I can take a look at that every day or every hour, or I mean, you can customize it as much as you want. So.
Yeah, and we had questions. We can't wait to ski with you on Friday. Cause the group's like logging questions for Charlie, like how's this metric work, and what can I do here? Well, you've got a lot of the coaching tips and that. Is that end of it going to continue to build, and is there going to be a little bit of like, can you through the Carv website kind of get some understanding of more of what the data means and how to work with it?
Yeah, so I mean, coaching is a massive part of Carv. I mean, we've spoken about it already, and it's something we continually improve each year. So this year, for the first time, we will give you tips that are relevant to the type of terrain you're skiing. So, for example, if you get on the lift after doing a mogul run, you will get a tip that is relevant to moguls. Yeah. And I think that's been a really big step, and it's something that will continue to improve. And I guess it's a really good example of how we love to work with instructors. Because we can provide the systems, we can provide the technology, we can make it work, but it's that human expertise and that knowledge and that experience that really makes those tips work and makes them sing and helps people put that into their skiing. So I've no doubt that will continue to improve.
Yeah, now that we have made this investment in Carv 2 and done all the work on the data science to get this next level of metrics, the coaching is really the next frontier. I joined a company recently, and I've been doing tech-enabled coaching for the past 15 years. And what we have now is this amazing foundation of the technical evaluation of the skiing. But we have a set of tips, but we have so much more that we want to do to really understand what are your goals, what skills do you want to build, how do those metrics ladder up to the skills and the whole body movements that you need to put together? What are the pitfalls? What are the different drills to do? Put that whole picture together so it can be an even better complement to professional human instructors and really put that whole piece together is the intention.
Because I know you've already seen people coming to Aspen and like, hey, I have Carv and I have this data. Can you help me? I want to work on this. And they must be even bringing it and having it on their.
Yeah, I mean.
So I think pros everywhere are going to see that, whether they have it or not.
Sure.
And people are coming in asking for that. It's like it's definitely something that I think people are going to, because my group really enjoyed the human interaction. Like they still had me there as the coach, like, and I was learning it just as much as they were for the, only like the third week on it. That was really cool. But they really enjoyed looking at the data, then trying to talk about it and figure out where we were going with it.
Yeah.
So there must be that connection is something you must want to foster and keep going.
Yeah, it's super interesting, and Kevin's a real authority on this, and the whole team out in Aspen, Thomas Renault, Kim, Damien, Tomas.
My story with Carv is like Thomas Renault put him in, put the inserts in my boots, and then he was with me and he was interpreting the data. He said, try this, try that, try this, and it was so much fun because yes, we were trying to get the highest score, and yes, I am competitive, and yes, I'm so proud that I'm on the top of the leaderboard here. But Mike Hafer reminds me that I'm not as good globally, so I got to work on that. But basically, 4 years ago here, my first mini academy, I made the team. Someone had come up to me and they said, "Hey, like, can you help me out with this?" And I was like, "Thank goodness I've tried this because at least I had some awareness and I could look at the data and I could interpret it and I can make some decisions." And Carv will do the same thing for you, like Charlie said. If you ski a mogul run, then you can get like some mogul coaching and some tips like that and things like that. But I think the other thing, like the two important things about Carv as a company is, one, they're so committed to trying to improve skiing and the product, and it's like a true testament of like they're not settling. They're like, wait, what can we do better? How can we do this clinic better? How can we do this demo better? They just don't want to, like, they can't stop, right? Like, so that's so good. And then two, it's like Tim Sanderson, who I got an opportunity to do some ski tips with. He was so good because he was an Austrian level 2 was what he had, but he's a former pro park skier. And the coolest story I have with like Carv is like he's filming me because I'm like doing some ski tips and we're doing different things. And we're talking about outside ski pressure or outside like ski. We're doing one ski turns kind of deal, an outside ski pressure monitor. There's a monitor at that time. And basically, like, he's skiing backwards. He's like, yeah, just tell me if I'm going to hit anything. Like, just, yell pretty loud if I'm going to hit something I don't see. So, okay. We get down to the bottom, and I, like, pull out the data. And I was like, dude, you were going 40 miles an hour. Like, you were going 40 miles an hour. And he's like, yeah, I know. And he's so, like, proud of himself. And I was like, dude, like, what are you doing? Like, but it's just, like, we had the app. We had the data. We knew. And he was such an accomplished skier, and that's a true testament of, like, you look at their social media and they have, like, they work with all different organizations and they work with so many different really good ski instructors that it's like, man, there's so much that you can learn from them,
And do you think you'll because it creates some serious excitement, but people have a lot of questions, like, so do you see people using it, like, and then maybe taking more lessons? Because I know some of the general public is just going to use the product and love it as it is that they have. But for me, it's like the product almost can create some of that because they get on it and like, I need a little more information of how I can get over the hump to get a better score. It's really, I think, enticing people to ski better.
Yeah, we hope it does that. As part of the intention is just get people fired up on continuing to improve.
Yeah.
And we think it'll definitely drive people to then get a lesson, dive in on deeper aspects of that, and then come back to Carv and use that to drill it and get better, and they just reinforce each other.
Yeah, and this year you're doing a special deal to everybody, the general public, that like the sensors are like free, aren't they? And then just a membership for the year. I mean, it's like a 50% off gig to the general public, kind of.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so the sensors are included in our season pass. So it's $249 each year. That gets you all the coaching, all the analysis, and the sensors are included. And the really fantastic thing about Carv is that we release like a big update every year. Yeah. And we release updates during the season. It continually gets better. It's something Kevin just touched on in the last point. It's like we will not rest on our laurels. We will continue to work on this thing, and John's a real driving force behind that.
Yeah.
So, you know, it will continue to get better. Like this year, for example, all of our customers who had Carv-1, like whether or not they upgraded to the new system, they're getting the terrain detection, they're getting the terrain coaching, they're getting all the features that are coming. And we're really committed to that.
We ski on it just as much as everybody else.
Yeah.
So everything that people want improved, we want it improved too.
Yeah.
So we feel it.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. I saw online on Facebook that one of my favorite skiers, Marcus Kasten, is on the Carvs. That must be pretty. And I was wondering if like the big change to getting off piste, where he's doing all the big mountain skiing, that was part of that or what?
Yeah, Marcus has just joined our athlete team, which is really exciting. So yeah, I mean, the fantastic thing about Marcus is he's an awesome off-piste skier, like amazing to watch, but he's grounded in like really good technique.
Oh yeah.
So he grew up
Return to the turn.
yeah. So he grew up racing, and he's got this real focus on athleticism and excellence and doing everything as well as he can do it. But yeah, I completely agree. Like these new features and being able to detect the type of snow that you're skiing on, it's been great, because you know skiing's a multifaceted sport. It's not just about ripping it down groomers. As fantastic as that is, there's so much more to it, and we're keen to represent the whole sport as much as we can.
And you're really working with for PSA this year to try to get a lot of the pros on it, get them to try it. And there's a super deal I know you're giving for them to try to get them on to work with people that are coming in and to know about the product. I think there's going to be a lot of people, if they don't know, someone comes in and says, hey, I'm using this and I have this data, and they don't even know what it is, it's going to be kind of behind the times if they don't get up and just at least to know what it is.
Yeah, for sure. So any qualified instructor with a PSAA or even globally is eligible for our pro deal. So that's 60% off, $99 a year. Give it a go. If you don't like it, we've got a 100-day return policy. And yeah, we're super keen for you guys to use it and to love it and to use it to develop your own skiing. And we're super happy to support the instructor community.
And it's just been, I think the thing that I summed it up so far this week for 2.5 days with my group was fun. Yeah. Like they really had fun with it, and we're laughing about where the things were and when they improved. Because I was looking at it and I'm like, if they get 5 or 10%, that's huge. I mean, how do you get to the 170? You're not going to get there. I mean, that's what Marcus is probably getting up there, 160. I'm not going to get 160. You hit your 146 today. Yeah. But it's so cool to see you can work in those zones. It's kind of like even a race that people are in that zone competing wherever they are, that level they're skiing at. Yeah. And in your skill level, where the target zones, you can change those. If I want to test myself, I could up my skill level a little bit, so then it's going to up my target zones, correct? When I go into this,
you can, as much as you can allow that system to choose for you what it might think will get you up another level, you can also go and choose the areas that you want to focus on. So
yeah.
The things that you think are fun to challenge yourself with, and more we're going to do more and more coaching around what specific skills you want to develop as well. It won't just be about the scores and the metrics, but about how that relates to different skills. Whether you want to be more controlled skiing in the steeps, or whether you want to embark into moguls, things like that. We'll put that package together for you of what pieces of the ski IQ and what metrics to look at, and what things to think about in your body that connect to that.
Yeah, it's been super cool this week. I'm thanks for letting my group do it. I think they were really pumped. They're looking forward to Friday, and it would be funny. One of the guys that was coming down the front side and got his 137. He was out at the bottom. I wasn't there, but they talked about it. He came down, and one of your team members was over the group, and he literally, after Carv talked to him, he's like jumping up and down. I got a 137, yes! I mean, he was screaming. So it was pretty cool to see that kind of enthusiasm for looking at the data and having some fun with it. But is there some? I know you do a big new update you're talking about every year. So John, what are some of the things you can hint at for the next one next year? Like, what are we looking forward to?
Well, I dropped a few hints in here. I have to be careful because we listen very carefully to the community, and there is stuff that we need to improve. We in here we've talked about all the great stuff, but we've got to be realistic. There's things in there that we need to improve, and we've got to listen to the community. What do they care about most? So that's one stack of things. But then we've got our stacks of things that we really want to do as well, and we have to balance them. So, but the main things I talked about is I really want to put together that bigger picture of skills, right? So you need ski IQ and you need the metrics, but then you need a map of the skills that you have. And the way I see that is parallel skiing, carving, short turns, then carving in steeps, more advanced short turns, mogul skiing. Like each of those skill areas, how are you progressing up there? And then being able to put together a coaching package for you that walks you through that journey, where you can say, my goal is this. Don't just coach me on one metric at a time. Coach me on how to put them together. And this is one of the biggest things people talk to us about is, where is the old train with an Olympian mode? And we love train with an Olympian mode, and we mourn its loss as much as everyone else. But what's coming is train with an Olympian mode. What's the right way to say it? Just the next level of that.
Yeah.
Where now it's not, train with an Olympian was just about progressive carving.
Yeah.
Now the same kind of dynamic, imagine having that for all of those different areas of skills and bringing to bear the personalities of the athletes that we're working with and their expertise in each of those areas. That's the next frontier, is really packaging that all together.
That's super cool. And you've used it a lot longer than I have, Kevin.
Yeah.
And you were even skiing down in Portillo doing some stuff with these guys down there. But how has it evolved for you? Like, I imagine, I think the more I'm going to use this, I'll have better handle on guiding people with the data and that. What have been the big evolution for you while you've been using it?
Yeah, I mean, I've used it, like I said, for myself. I've used it with other ski instructors. I've used it with a bunch of different people. And I think they're coming every time I use it with a big group, like 30 people today. It's like a different, I did a video mode with one individual, so it's like they're like, you can do that. I'm like, yeah, you can video, and then you can watch, you can get some of the scores, and it's overlaid on the video, and so now you can see and you have this visual representation. So it only gets better. And what I'm curious about is you were the perfect kind of test group, because you've had this group for 10 years. And they know each other. And what I love about this event is that everyone knows each other. They all kind of bust each other's chops a lot. You know what I mean? They're just giving each other a hard time all the time. But I'm curious about, you said, it was fun, and it's got a different, and they're created some excitement. And I'm not saying they wouldn't have been excited either, but I'm just curious if it's helped you with, or any of the participants in your group, like a breakthrough.
Yes.
Or you were saying the guy at the 137, but
it's helped for them to take on some more challenges, to try to do some different things, because the data's right there. Not me saying, oh, you didn't do it or you did do it, but they're looking at the phone and they're like, that number is the same or it went down. So they're much more willing. They were much more willing, I think, to take on some tougher challenges to improve that stuff, or different tasks that they might have in the past. We really got to do that. Right. So yeah, definitely seen that. And a couple of people have had some big breakthroughs with that combination, I think, because it was confirmation for them too. Looking at some of the data, they could see when it went up, and then especially looking at turn shape. They would know when it wasn't round, and they'd know when it was round. They definitely could see the colors when it was parallel or not. That yellow got in there for the snowplow, and they did not like that snowplow work.
Yeah.
We haven't talked about the modes where you can hear with every turn.
Yeah.
Either active coach, where it sets a level and then it gives you a bing or a bong for each turn, so you can get that feel. This is where I think coaches, instructors and Carv can work together amazingly well, because when you're skiing and you get that feedback on every turn, it just ingrains it in your brain. You can get the feel for it. And then the instructor can tell you, well, try this and adjust this movement of your body, and then go back to that and see if you can feel it in the turn, and then hear it connect with the intended outcome. It just accelerates that learning process, because it closes the loop so much faster. Otherwise, it might take you 10 runs to make that connection if you have the real-time feedback with every turn. No, it's not for everybody for every run, right? It's intensive. But you do that for a little while, and then you step away from it and you go to one of the other modes that gives you the feedback on the lift and is more sparse, and then you're able to really reap those different kinds of learning. And like I said, that I think really connects well with the instructors, because it helps to then get that ingrain it into your brain
Yeah.
with each turn in just in a fast pace.
Yeah, and it's incredible with the motion sensors. I know this is a huge question, but it must. I mean, because it's selfish. I want to just keep focusing on alpine skiing. Don't go to snowboard or anything, because like put all in because for us. But like with the motion sensors, like the sky's the limit. It seems like in the movement world. Like
Yeah.
using this kind of technology, like to go to a snowboarding, if it's a whole nother gig, like starting right over, but it's possible with
I don't know
motion,
if
isn't
I
it?
should say this, I might get kicked out. I've only been skiing for 4 seasons, so I represent, Charlie and my other team members, they're the more experts. My data science team is, but I represent more the novice skier going on
Yep.
that journey. I snowboarded for 30 years, and I started my son on skis at age 2, a few seasons ago. And I said, I better get good fast, because he's going to be embarrassed to ski with me.
Yeah.
I just can't keep up
Yeah.
with him. I've told this story a lot, but it's a pretty compelling one for me. He's
Yeah.
already wanting to do a double black diamond. Now he's 5. And I'm like, I've never done one on skis before. I better. So to connect the point here, I still snowboard here and there.
Yeah.
I'm hooked on skiing now, so I'm 99% skiing, but there's so much of it that translates. I can tell you, I'm a better carving snowboarder now
Yeah.
than I was before, because
Yeah.
of learning how to carve better on skis.
Yeah.
The concepts, the dynamics, the measurement, it teaches you this. And I snowboarded for 30 years, and
Yeah.
suddenly spending a few seasons on skis with Carv, and it made me so much better at that. It's
Yeah.
wild. So, and I AT ski as well. My wife is really the one that blasts up the hill, and I'm just like struggling to keep up. But yeah, you can imagine if you could measure your endurance going up as much as you can measure the quality
Yeah.
of your skiing going down. There's all kinds of
Yeah.
frontiers.
Because I have put it on my telly boots and used it telly skiing
Yeah.
already this year,
Yeah.
and that was pretty cool. It was reading, I mean, data pretty much like it was on my alpine skis. I mean,
Oh,
really cool.
interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it was
it was
really
helpful.
neat. I got to show Kevin. I'll have to show you this week. We'll look back to Loveland when I was out at Loveland in November. Yeah, I had my
Yeah.
telly gear on. It was like
Oh.
Kevin's like, "Go for it. Let's see what we get."
People
Yeah.
ask me about that, but I haven't heard.
Yeah.
And we've had snowboarders who strapped it on, and I said, well, it's probably not going to work. For
Yeah.
sure. But they still got something out of
Yeah.
it, which was surprising, because it's all designed about 2 separate
Right.
legs and legs,
Yeah.
and totally different movements, but certain of the metrics still.
Yeah, it was really cool.
But yeah, right now we're focused on
Yeah.
Alpine.
Yeah.
So we really want to nail this. Like I said, there's
Yeah.
so much more that we think we can do to really get this to the next level.
Yeah.
But then you can imagine once
Oh.
you really nail that and you have all the pieces together, it translates totally
Yeah.
to other things.
That's amazing. So yeah, I'm looking forward to the rest of the week working with the group, and I think people should give it a try, because it's definitely something you have to try.
Yeah.
And it's so easy now. I mean, the way it loads up with the phone on the boots, no messing with anything, no extra boot boards you had to mill down.
Yeah.
It's just, and it just reads instantly. What is it, like 6 to 8 turns, and it knows where they are on your boot. It's not like it has to go in an exact spot.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can put it anywhere.
Yeah.
Anywhere on your boot, and even just as you walk, or you dangle your foot off the chairlift, or you move it in any way, it's referring back to that old data set where we know where it's sat, and it's working out where you've put it on the new one, and you're good to go.
That's cool. Well, I want to thank you guys for setting us up for the week. I know the group has had a super fun time, and I think they're going to, most of them, I think, are probably going to continue using it, and I know I am. And
Did we want to do like a little get a participant?
well, we
from the
could.
group?
We could have
and see
Carrie.
what
Do you
they
want
think?
to come over and what your thoughts are on how it was? Because Carrie was in the group. Come on over. Grab the. You can
Here,
grab
you go,
Kevin.
Lisa.
Yeah.
Come on over. I'm more curious. There you go.
What was your experience this week?
Well, it was certainly different. I'll admit I was a little bit skeptical. I am a technical thinker, as my background is engineering, but I've never applied a whole lot of that to skiing. And I was like, I don't want to stare at my phone all week. And I told Dave he was not allowed to make us stand on the side of the trail and look at our phones. But I will admit, I pull my phone out when we get to lunch, and when we get to the bar, and it's like, all right, what was that? And sometimes it was super exciting to hear what some folks' numbers were. And then I looked at mine and I'm like, Well, I won. And I won't go out and think I can beat somebody, but when I win without thinking about it, that makes me happy. But it was also a new way of looking at things, and I've never thought about having instantaneous data of what my boots are doing.
Yeah. So do you think you're going to have some folks maybe come in for lessons and might have used it?
I think we will definitely have that at the mountain. I think it's great to have that exposure to what's going on. I also think that my house full of skiers that I have trained will have a good time playing with it as well.
Because Jeremy will be with us on Friday, won't he? We'll have to strap him on him.
Yeah.
Yep. We'll see what his numbers are. Then the competition starts between you and him.
He learned how to ski when he met me, so if he wins, we're going to have a crowd.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Breeden, you want to say anything over there? I know you want to say something. Come on over. Come on. We can't leave Michael out. Michael's been a carve guy. He's the longest carve guy. Come over here and carry spot so you can get on there. The mic. Michael was on Carve 1. Michael's on the website. You have a picture on the website as a Carve coach. So what's been your experience with Carve 2, the evolution from Carve 1? Is the data obviously must be telling you some new stuff? And
yeah, the data is consistent. What I'm finding is that my movement patterns on Carve 1 is measured the same way, but the new metrics give even more insight, and so much more comfortable to not have that extra hardware in the boot, and so much just simpler overall, especially with someone who has plug boots and the liners go in and out each time that you put your boots on. Not having to worry about the wires and all of that makes a big difference. So I'm enjoying it. I can't wait to get back out on snow tomorrow and try to pump that score up 4 more points. Not 5, 4.
yeah.
I'm not very good at that.
No, I'm thinking you'd be the guy right away. You're like, I think you're going to have some extra sets. You're probably going to, with certain clients, want to like use this a lot.
I could definitely see that. Where we are, I think, and I've seen a few people come to the mountain who have Carve. A lot of people on staff are becoming adopters. So I think we're going to see them more and more in clinics, more and more from the general public coming to the mountain and trying to integrate the hardware and the people side to get the most out of the coaching. So as instructors, I think it's our job to really embrace the trends in the industry so that we can best serve our customers.
Yeah.
And I think that Carve is definitely going to be more and more prevalent in the future. So as time goes on, if you aren't using that, I think you're going to be more and more outdated.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. Super cool. It's been an awesome time. I'm glad that Carrie and Michael got to get on. I know Carrie's wanted to be on the podcast for a long time. So
Michael wanted to be on it.
I wanted to since episode 1.
and see, you were like, I'm not going to get on there. I'm never going to get on there. You get on there here tonight. So there it is, man.
Yeah.
Pretty cool. But we definitely want to thank you. You've got one of the sponsors, our sponsors there, Nick's Boot Fitting on there over in Vermont. So if you haven't had your boots fitted, you got to do that. And I was pretty psyched. I think it was Charlie walked in with some blizzards.
Yes.
So definitely Blizzard Technica is our main crew here, keeping the podcast and helping us out. And then also Rollerblade, so thank all of them, and hopefully you can support them. And hopefully you can support Carve in the future, because I think it's going to be a super cool thing to use. It was this week. I know I'm going to keep using it. I know I'm going to be on the email and the text with Kevin probably all winter going with different stuff with it. Probably Charlie too, because I tried to load that WhatsApp thing. I tried that. We got to work on that because I couldn't send anything to you. But I've got the app on the phone now, so then we'll work on that. When you said the other night, like WhatsApp, I'm like, what's that to deal with Carve? It's like, oh, that's not with Carve. So yeah, it's a little more.
It's just how we talk to each other in Europe.
Yeah, so that's what Debbie explained that to me. It's like, okay, I got to figure out that one. So we'll work on that one. But thanks, John, for letting things happen this week and being here. Hopefully I get to ski with you this week too before you take off. I know we will, Charlie. Thanks for being here. And just thanks to everybody for listening. This has been The Fall Line with Chaos and Company.